if the Hulk exists to protect us from Banner? Somewhere in a red-hot haze, the Incredible Hulk punches at a massive sheet of metal. I have a long-held theory about the Hulk. His face contorts as he pulls back his arm, ready for another hefty blow. I have never shared it before now because, well, frankly, terrifies me to my very core. Again, the Hulk slammed his fist into the metal. We have always thought of the Hulk as the manifestation of Dr. Banner's trauma that he experienced as a child. Or perhaps his ID, his shadow, his fury. The Hulk's many enraged attempts to tear this thing down were now as clear as the scattered bones around him. We pan out for a clearer shot of Hulk's location. He's in a massive wasteland, a desert lit by a setting sun. The thing he's trying to break through is an enormous metal door, towering many times his height. It's not connected to anything. It's just been left here in the middle of the desert. Hulk's eyes narrow as he starts to punch again and again. His fists now bloodied by sheer amount of force he's unleashed to try and break through. He's not stopping. What if Hulk is none of those things? What if he exists to protect us from Banner? We see a bright display screen flicker to life, engine engaged, ready for launch. And as the Hulk's punches ring out, we see that the other side of that door opens into a massive technological chamber. And there, we see Dr. Bruce Banner, walking away from his counterparts even as Hulk tries desperately to reach him. Bruce Banner walks over to a set of futuristic lockers, stopping at one marked Captain. He opens it up, discarding his lab coat and glasses in favor of a new outfit. Before he can go any further, Betty Ross interrupts him. She's skeptical about what Bruce is up to, but he tells her she shouldn't be here. Betty would tell Bruce that he can't keep the Hulk locked in there. It would appear I very much can. Betty would then remind Bruce that the Hulk is just a child. She was worried about him hurting himself, hurting the Hulk. She'd tell him that he can't blame himself for what happened in El Paso. Enraged now, Bruce would yell out that he doesn't blame himself, he blames the Hulk. Betty was scared. According to her, Bruce wasn't sounding like himself. But this only upset Bruce more, as he questioned how she or anyone could ever possibly know what he sounds like. After all, he's only useful to anyone when he's not around, and he's had enough of it. Betty watches in horror as Bruce continues his rant. He never wanted this life. He never wanted to be a superhero, defender, avenger, or monster. He wanted to be a scientist, a man who pushes the boundaries of possibility. But his life didn't pan out that way. Bruce takes a second away from Betty to work a control console, bringing up the engine power. Behind the door, Hulk continues punching to no avail. Bruce tells Betty that like a tumor, the Hulk continues to grow stronger within him. The monster was a sickness that wouldn't stop, and one day the Hulk will be completely free and Bruce will never wake up. The Hulk is immortal. I'm not. But for now, Bruce has the Jolly Green Giant under his control, and he's gonna take full advantage of that. Betty tries to insist that this can't work. Sooner or later, the Hulk will get out, that this will all backfire, all as the Hulk continued to beat into the door. Banner! But Bruce just snarks back at her. This whole journey started with a bomb blowing up in his face. It might as well end with another disaster. And now that he's made up his mind, he banishes the image of Betty from his head, and the voice of reason, his morality, completely vanishes. Bruce strolls out of a corridor and into a brightly lit room, hands behind his back. He takes a seat in an oversized chair with his back to the light. With this shot of him, it's clear that his captain outfit isn't some conventional military attire. Bowing his head, Dr. Banner repeats a brief mantra to himself as he slowly turns his chair towards the light. These waves do not crash on me. They break on me because I am strong. Bruce is ready for something big, But before we find out what it is, we cut over to a very confused Spider-Man. Doctor Strange has gathered several Avengers to explain what's going on with the Hulk. He explains to Earth's mightiest heroes that this is perhaps the greatest threat they have ever faced. That if the Hulk's actions in El Paso have truly broken Banner's mind beyond repair, then they may be out of options. Captain Marvel asks about an official El Paso death toll, but Captain America insists that one is too many. It's true. Banner killed several people in a bar that day in El Paso, but instead of it being the result of some uncontrollable rage, some kind of strange gamma plague infected the other patrons, and something forced Bruce to slaughter them all. Unable to end his own life, Bruce decided to use the devil inside like it used him. It's why he's contained the Hulk. Captain America and Iron Man were able to track Bruce moving towards an old Stark Tech armory. Cap demanded to know what was happening and how Bruce was doing all this. Doctor Strange would admit that he wasn't sure, that what Bruce Banner has built is something not even he could have achieved. In fact, he searched the entire planet and questioned every mystic and Omega-level telepath he could, but none were responsible. Still, Doctor Strange was convinced that Bruce couldn't have done it by himself. The magic required was incomprehensible. At Cap's insistence, Strange finally explains outright. We'd see the Hulk emerge from the snow-covered tundra with a cybernetic helmet and harness and deliver a brutal punch into Iron Man's Hulkbuster armor. Somehow, Bruce Banner has fractured and reorganized his own mind. He's turned the Hulk into a starship. He split his psyche into 3 different parts. The Hulkbuster hits the arsenal's outer wall as Hulk looms over him.
Stay down, Tony. You should know better by now. In all your time building armor, you've never built one that could beat mine.
Bruce modified and upgraded the external frame with technology he violently stole from AIM and surgically implanted it into the Hulk's body. Thanks to this, he's built an unbelievable mind palace, unlike any Doctor Strange has ever seen before. Tony's not giving up that easily and decided to unveil a new weapon. Doctor Strange quickly saw the mind palace in his astral form before being cast out. Vast, complex, impenetrable, and at the center of it all, where the Hulk's psyche would usually be, sat Bruce as the captain of Starship Hulk. The Doctor tries to negotiate with Tony, or at least get him to surrender, but it's not gonna be that easy. Tony has 4 more Hulkbusters emerge from the depths. All the Hulkbusters fire missiles at Starship Hulk, bombarding him from every direction. The missiles explode with a bright light, releasing a cloud of shiny metal particles. Tony identifies this as adamantium nanoparticle shrapnel. It burrows directly into skin, even skin as tough as the Hulk's. And as it does, the nanoparticles are programmed to form shapes out of the metal. In this case, a cage. The Hulkbusters keep their blasters trained on the Hulk, continuing to fire at him. But as they do, Doctor Strange explains the 3rd element of this new Starship Mind Palace. The Hulk's strength is infamously based on his anger, which is why Bruce caged him in what he calls the engine room, which in this case be brought up to stage 1. Just then, Hulk is shot in the back by laser fire. Hulk turns around while calling out to Banner, only to see attack jets, tanks, and helicopters, infinite armies for the Hulk to fight and make him angrier. Back in the physical world, the Hulk continued to be attacked by Iron Man. From there, he'd literally tear his arm from the adamantium cage to expose his bones before quickly breaking them too with his free fist. Tony was terrified.
I say when it ends.
Bruce, wait. Strange, he's told us everything. I know what's going on in there. And look, from one mad scientist to another, you don't have to.
I am not mad. I'm angry!
as he tore through one of the Hulkbusters with a single fist, knocking its remains into another one. Banner would make it clear that he was done explaining himself to Tony, done explaining himself to anyone, as he made a mess of them all. Pinning the last one to the ground, Tony would cry out for him to stop, just as Bruce slammed his stub into the head of Tony's suit. As he pulled the arms off, Tony would question how Bruce was doing this. How did he know he wasn't in the suit? As he replaced his severed arm with one of the Hulkbusters, Bruce would coldly explain that he didn't know, but was grateful for the heads up as he charged his new blaster. Inside the engine room, Hulk's psyche was tearing through the unending armies like they were nothing. In the real world, he breaks through the outer wall, hitting the real Tony with a massive repulsor blast. This fight is pretty much over. Tony tries to stand, insisting that he won't let Bruce get past him, but is visibly scared.
Good to know.
The next blast lands right on Tony's torso, the sheer force being enough to shatter the stolen gauntlet. Hulk is furious inside the engine room, which granted Banner the strength to launch Tony across the room as his real arm reformed. Tony's suit was no longer operational, as all he could do was beg Bruce not to continue. Bruce, in turn, would explain that he never came here for a fight. He was here for something much bigger, something called Project Ark. A massive, mountain-sized armored suit in black and gold, a repurposed Celestial. One Tony piloted during the events of Null's invasion to great effect. Tony was using its latent celestial energies to create a wormhole connecting to a pocket dimension where civilians could be evacuated to in the case of another universe-compromising threat. Walking forward, Bruce only wanted to borrow it. Tony, realizing what Banner's been after all this time, protests that he's got the wrong idea. The portal isn't stable yet. But Bruce was pretty sure this was what everyone wanted, to be rid of him as he placed an arm inside. You could die in there. You have no idea where it will take you. And neither will you. Goodbye, Tony. As he stepped forward into the unknown, we'd have Bruce Banner's final words to his former comrades, that if they hear this message, then he's already gone. He wasn't broadcasting this to explain himself, but rather as a warning. He wasn't leaving because he hated or feared them. He was leaving because none of them would know how to deal with what he's on the verge of becoming. One of his old friends was truly gone. Tony cried out in horror. You all have your little plans, your armored suits, your rocket ships. All of your clever ideas on how to deal with my monster should his actions not prove to be in your best interest. But you aren't dealing with him anymore. Bruce was completely surrounded by these unpredictable energies. From within Starship Hulk, he'd brace himself. You're dealing with me, and I promise you have no plan for me. Blood now pouring from his orifices as he smiled a wicked smile. Because I am not controlled by my rage anymore. Behind the engine room door, Hulk's anger was incomprehensible. I'm fueled by it. Subscribe to Plot Armor Comics for more of this story, and go check out our video on the time Hulk was trapped for over 500 years.